Once awareness begins to stabilize, it doesn't stay contained. It doesn't remain something you notice only in quiet moments. It moves outward, into conversation, into connection, into misunderstanding, into closeness. It moves into relationship. And for many people, this is where awareness feels most tested. Not because awareness disappears, but because relationship reveals what awareness has not yet softened. When we're alone, it's easier to feel present. There's less friction, fewer variables, fewer mirrors. The moment is simpler. But relationship introduces movement. Other people speak, interrupt, misread us, bring their own histories, moods, and expectations into the same space. And suddenly, things move very quickly. Many people quietly expect that awareness will make relationships smoother, kinder, calmer, more harmonious. Sometimes that happens, but very often, what comes first is exposure. Reactivity becomes obvious. Defensiveness stands out. Old habits surface faster than expected. This can feel disappointing, but it isn't a setback. It's clarity. Relationship is where identity tries hardest to stabilize. We want to be seen, to be understood, to be met in the way we imagine ourselves. And when that doesn't happen, the body reacts immediately. A tightening in the chest, heat in the face, a quickening of the breath, an urge to explain, correct, or withdraw. Awareness doesn't stop this reaction. It notices it. You may begin to see how quickly a sense of me forms. I'm not being heard. They don't respect me. I need to say something right now. These thoughts arrive fast. Before awareness, they felt justified and unquestioned. Now, they're simply visible. That visibility creates space. Not always enough to stop the reaction, but enough to see that identity is forming in response to contact. This is one of the most important recognitions awareness brings into relationship. Reactions are not proof of truth. They are movements of conditioning meeting a moment. That doesn't make them wrong. It makes them understandable. Awareness doesn't ask you to suppress reactions. It allows you to see them without being fully captured by them. And that changes how you speak, how you listen, how you pause. One subtle shift is how listening changes. Before awareness, listening often meant waiting. Waiting to respond, waiting to clarify, waiting to defend a position. Awareness softens that waiting. You begin to hear words without immediately positioning yourself against them. Not because you're trying to be better, but because there's less at stake internally. This doesn't mean you agree with everything. It means you're present for what's actually being said. Presence alone can shift the tone of an interaction. People often feel when they are being met rather than evaluated. Another thing awareness reveals is how quickly emotions arise in relationship. Irritation, hurt, fear, withdrawal. Awareness doesn't prevent emotion. It changes how emotion is held. Emotion appears first as sensation. Tightness, pressure, heat, constriction, and sensation can be stayed with. You may notice moments where emotion rises and you don't act on it immediately. That pause is not control. It's awareness creating room. Room for response instead of reflex. At the same time, this stage can be uncomfortable because you may still react, but now you see it happening. You may notice the tightening even as words are coming out. You may notice the defensiveness even as it's expressed. This can feel discouraging, but it's actually a sign of integration. Awareness is now present inside the reaction, not absent from it. One of the most common struggles here is self-judgment. I should know better. I've already seen this. Why am I still like this? This judgment is just another identity response. Awareness notices that too. And noticing it prevents a secondary layer of conflict from forming. Relationships are also where projection becomes clear. Assumptions about intention, stories about what someone meant, beliefs about why they behaved a certain way. Awareness slows the moment down just enough to see the story forming. And once seen, that story loses certainty. It becomes a possibility, not a fact. This doesn't mean you stop interpreting. It means interpretation is held lightly. And that lightness can prevent unnecessary conflict before it escalates. Closeness also changes character. Awareness allows intimacy without fusion. You can be close without losing yourself. And you can be separate without withdrawing. This balance often feels unfamiliar at first. Many people were taught that closeness requires agreement or that difference threatens connection. Awareness challenges those assumptions gently. Silence also changes. Before awareness, silence in relationship often felt uncomfortable. Something to fill, something to manage, something that meant something was wrong. With awareness, silence can simply be space. Not absence, not rejection, just presence without performance. This can confuse others. They may ask if you're upset or distant. Nothing is wrong. You're just no longer rushing to shape the moment. Awareness also reveals how much effort was spent maintaining roles. The one who fixes, the one who keeps the peace, the one who stays strong, the one who never needs anything. These roles formed for good reasons. They were adaptive. Awareness doesn't criticize them. It lets them rest when they're no longer necessary. You may notice moments where you genuinely don't know how to respond, where the old scripts don't apply. This can feel awkward, but awkwardness is honest. Not knowing creates space for something real to emerge. Relationships don't become perfect with awareness. They become real. Misunderstandings still happen. Emotions still arise. Boundaries still matter. But the internal struggle lessens. There's less urgency to defend an identity just to stay connected. Awareness also brings compassion. Not as an idea, as recognition. You begin to see that others are moving from conditioning too. They're reacting from habit, from history, from fear or unmet need. This doesn't excuse harm, but it softens reactivity. It allows clarity without hostility. You may notice that some relationships shift. Some deepen. Some become clearer. Some naturally loosen or fall away. Awareness doesn't force alignment. It allows honesty. And honesty reorganizes relationships in its own way. One stabilizing realization in this stage is that not every moment needs to be resolved. Not every feeling needs explanation. Not every interaction needs closure. Presence is often enough. Clarity arrives after the body settles. Awareness doesn't require perfect communication. It supports honest communication. And honesty isn't always smooth. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's just saying less. If relationship feels harder right now, nothing has gone wrong. Awareness often increases sensitivity before it increases ease. You're noticing more. And noticing more is the work. Over time, the nervous system learns that connection doesn't require defense. That learning happens gradually, but it's reliable. You don't need to apply anything you've heard here. You don't need to practice relationship differently. Just notice what happens in the next interaction. Notice the body. Notice the urge to react. Notice the pause, even if it's brief. That noticing is awareness living in relationship. And this is where learning moves from understanding into life. If this helped you make sense of what's been showing up in your relationships, you're welcome to stay. Liking the video helps it reach others who may be navigating similar relational shifts. And if these reflections support you as awareness moves into connection, you can subscribe, not to keep up, but to continue together. And if someone you care about has been feeling more reactive, more sensitive, or more unsure in relationship lately, you're welcome to share this with them. Only if it feels natural. Sometimes it helps to know these changes are part of learning how to relate without losing yourself.